Well, whether you like or dislike Elon Musk, he has been called not very smart in the last couple weeks. And somebody retaliated by saying, this is the guy who's catching rockets with chopsticks.
Mm.
And that I love that description because this guy is so out there as far as his thinking about science and STEM. And I'm really excited to talk to Melissa Grande today. Melissa is our STEAM department chair at True North Academy. And we want to talk about science education because we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Science is advancing at the speed of sound with AI and robotics and all those kind of things. What does that mean for parents as they're prepping their kids to live and work in a very STEAM dominated world? What if your kid's not steamy? I just made that up.
Yeah.
What if they are? So, Melissa, so glad you're here to talk today. Thanks.
No problem. Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my mind when it comes to the future of STEAM education and just where the world is going is that we're definitely living in a world where tech is going to be at the forefront. AI has come leaps and bounds. This was not even really a word that you heard outside of science fiction movies 5 years ago. Nobody was saying, really AI was going to be a big thing, at least, in just the mainstream, maybe in the science world. But so it's something that I think is going to be very normal and a part of our future of our world, whether you're on board with it or whether you're not on board with it. So I think it's just a reality that we're going to have to learn how to live with and prepare our kids to live in that type of world and be able to work in that type of world and be successful. So for sure. Yeah.
We were talking about science education because we have a super strong science ed program at True North. So proud of it. We have actual scientists teaching your kids the scientific method, how to write an actual lab report. So they've worked in the field. They love science. They love sharing their passion about science with our students. But we were talking about, like, as a parent, like, I'm not really a science person. My husband is a scientist, but I love knowing about it. I just actually got science news for a Christmas present for all of us because it's just so fun to see all the cool things happening in the world. And science is exploding, just like you talked about. But how do we think about that as we're really overseeing the education of our kids, starting from even a really young age?
So, I think that because it's going to be the forefront of the work world going forward, that in some ways, and maybe in some disciplines more than others, it's going to be super competitive. So I think giving your kids, number one, opportunities to experience science at a young age. Yeah. And sometimes this is counterculture, right? We think, we don't have to worry about science a whole lot till they get a little bit older.
Yeah.
But even with young children, just taking them to explore nature, go to your local, nature park or zoo or things like that. One of our teachers, who I will not say her name, puts her kids in zoo camp every summer, and they're like 7 years old. Like, that is amazing. And it's a way that kids can start to develop a love for science and start to notice just connections in our environment as well, and our interconnectivity of us as human beings and plants and animals, and making those connections early and loving them. So I think that that's really important.
Yeah, I love that. I was just thinking, Albuquerque Natural History Museum has a paleontology exhibit in the basement where you can actually go and watch scientists working on digs. So cool. Or they bring the bones back, and it's so interactive. There's a lot of science museums and natural history museums around the country that you can do that. And they often have interchangeable passes and stuff like that. The other thing too, I think early science education has to do a lot with wonder. Yes. So getting your kids outside, turning off the devices, letting them get down on the ground with the ants and figuring out, hopefully they're not red ants or fire ants, but really giving your kids a chance to immerse themselves in nature and the scientific world. And it doesn't have to be like a big study with a notebook and pencils or whatever. Of course it could be, but just giving them a camera and telling them to go outside and go on a color scavenger hunt is such a simple way. We live in the country, and yesterday in our tree, in our yard, a hawk landed, which is so crazy. And the day before, a pheasant was in a fir tree. I mean, just being outside and understanding some of the ways that nature is there is a great way to immerse your kids in science without making it a really serious study or whatever when they're young.
Yeah, and giving them the opportunity to experience that in different seasons. If you live
Yes.
in someplace that's seasonal, I
Yep.
also feel like is really important, right? Because you're going to have different weather patterns in the winter than you would in the summer. So when my kids were small, we were going out. If it was raining, we've hiked in the snow. If there was ice, like we did it all. And it just, it gives them the opportunity to experience different types of nature
Yeah.
through all those different seasons. So
Yeah. I want to just mention the NASA and the NOAA websites. They're
yeah.
free, paid by our tax dollars, and they are chock full of great information. And honestly, weather watching is one of these crazy nerd kind of activities that a lot of really important people follow. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, they all had nature journals, right? And just having your kids be aware of the weather. We have a weather clock in this room, and it's so interesting to just notice. And my daughter has different time zones on her smartphone, which tells the weather and the time around the world. So we get the weather update everywhere we go around here. But it's such a great way to really introduce your kids to science in a really fun way, because a lot of science is noticing patterns and the math and all those kind of things. We didn't really have a really set science curriculum when our kids were little. We actually used a lot of stuff like the Magic School Bus, Usborne books. We loved the Tyner series, which I know somebody else pronounced Tinner this week. And I was like, oh, is that how you say it? I'm not sure. And then the websites and just doing a lot of outside studies. Great way to introduce your kids to science. As your kids get into middle school, like we have offered at True North so many middle school science classes, botany, zoology, earth and space, et cetera, et cetera. And we've put them all together into general science for a specific reason. It's easier for parents to really to just go, oh, I know I need this class. And so we've incorporated all those really cool units into one general science class. But what I think general science is a must-have class for everybody. What are your thoughts about general science and why is it important?
So I love general science, and I call it like the one-hit wonder of the sciences, because I think that it is, you get a lot of little different things for that, and you get to see different types of sciences, and it lets your kids experience different ones, like the seasons thing. So they can have a little bit of astronomy, they can have a little bit of earth science, they can have a little bit of biology, and things like that. So it helps them to kind of figure out what their interests are. And I feel like if your kid is STEMmy or STEAMY, we were saying that it will kind of maybe give them some direction as they go into the upper levels about what sciences they might want to study more, as electives and things like that, and maybe even future career possibilities. So,
yeah. And I think too, it's just such a smorgasbord kind of class, but the kids are learning things like in a good general science class, how to write a good lab report. What is the scientific method? And like I've been saying, I know marketers, they use the scientific method to see if their marketing tactics are working. It's such a beautiful tool. You want that tool in your kids' toolbox.
So in general science right now, we're doing claims, evidence, and reasoning. So the kids are learning how to spot claims in newspaper articles and videos, and then what evidence they can gather from that source as well. And then the reason why that evidence would support the claim. So that's been really fun to see the kids grow and learn how to do that. And you can apply that principle to so much else in our world.
Yes.
So.
It's a great way to like really give your kids the tools of how to critically think through, because listen, science is so political right now. My husband's in psychology, which is a soft science, but it is so political, and trying to sort through the claims versus the science. And actually I was listening to an interview with Musk, because he seems to be everywhere right now. Right. And he was saying, people say, don't question the science. That is antithetical to actual science.
It totally is.
Like science is about questioning everything.
Yeah. That's like the first thing I teach in most of my science classes, like lesson number 1, day 1. What is the difference between truth and fact, right? Truth is the actual truth, and fact is the truth as far as we know it.
Yes.
Science is always changing. We're always, learning new things. In astronomy this week, or last week rather, we were talking about Pluto, and I was explaining to the kids that Pluto is still a planet when I was a kid. So like, you know, now it's a dwarf planet, and we consider it, you know, not part of our outer solar system, I should say. But when I was a kid growing up, you thought solar system, it was 9 planets, and Pluto is definitely one of them. So it's a perfect example of fact as far as we know it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I love that distinction. So general science, and then we go into physical science. I think physical science is also a great setup class because your kids are getting a little taste of kind of a combo of chem and physics without having the math. But we teach a super fun, I say this collectively, but you teach a super fun science class for physical science, and that's Science with Marvel. And this, I love this class so much because you really capture the kids' imagination with, is the Marvel universe, like, can it be a thing? And you're like, well, let's talk about that. So yeah, you don't have to lose your kids in science with physical science. That's what I'm saying.
No, not at all. We spend, it is an excellent setup class. It's for I have typically 8th and 9th graders in that class. I will say that I do also have a couple older students who want to know a little bit about physics and chem, but aren't necessarily, they're not college bound, or they're not STEM college bound. So they just need a little bit of an introduction. So I do have some older kids in there too, but typically it's 8th and 9th graders. And right off the bat, we go over scientific method. They also learn lab report writing, and they do that over the course of the year. We do a chapter every couple of weeks on lab report writing, and they learn how to improve their lab report over the year. And we also learn how to take a scientific notebook, keep a scientific notebook, and we learn the Cornell notes-taking method, and also why it's important, because, you know, it teaches you good organization skills for science as well, and helps you to think a little bit deeper about some of the bigger concepts. So it's a great skill, and I love it. But it's also very fun because we have all of our physics and chemistry concepts, of course, tied into now the Marvel universe. But next year, we're going to add in a little DC universe. Superman is coming out, so the new movie. So I'm hoping we can add some of that in there as well. But this past week, we just studied nuclear energy, and we were comparing CERN to Iron Man's arc reactor. So that's always a fun class. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to say a disclaimer. If your kids don't like superheroes, they're going to love this class either which way. But I did want to talk about how to continue to write a good lab report. If your kid's not going into STEM, who cares? Secondly, Cornell note taking. Also, who cares? Like, tell me why I should care about my kids knowing those things.
Okay, so lab report writing, I feel very strongly about both those things. Honestly. Yeah, because I feel like both of them help you to organize your own thoughts.
Yes.
And when a person struggles with organizing their thoughts, that bleeds into lots of other areas of their life, from being able to keep an organized home to being able to stay focused in the work world. And, you know, as you know, so many things are dividing our attention nowadays that it's a great way to just practice that skill of organizing yourself. The lab report writing helps you to note steps for things. It helps you to take inventory of the materials that you need, attention to detail by noting the exact amounts of the materials that you need. We also learn how to record data as well. So if you do an experiment, we learned about different type of graphing and how to put those graphs into a lab report. And that's really fun. The kids actually love graphing. So that's great.
Which by the way, can I just interrupt? Learning to graph in a fun way means trig is not going to be intimidating to your kids.
Yes.
Well, let's just be honest, because isn't that all of trig is like, we're going to make some graphs now. But if they've already done graphing and been super successful, they have that success and confidence they get to take with them to higher math.
Yeah. We did a whole lesson on the different types of graphs, what makes a good graph, what information you should include, variables versus invariables. And so it was a really great opportunity for them to get that exposure to that for sure. So Cornell Notes, same thing. It keeps you organized. Cornell Notes also has you take all your information and narrow it down to a big idea, which is super helpful when things feel overwhelming. It also asks you to log your questions in your left-hand sidebar as well, which is helpful because you can ask questions about concepts you don't understand. But I also find that sometimes when I get my kids' notes, they're just doodling or maybe brain dumping other stuff they're thinking about and they just want to get rid of while they're trying to focus. So I see a lot of different ways that that's accomplished, but all in all, it's great for organization skills and just brain dumping and all that.
Yeah.
So.
And it's so great for kids in that age where they're going from child to young adult to learn tools like that, because we're building executive functioning skills. These are transferable skills they can take anywhere else, to writing, to organizing a home, just how to actually operate a car. I mean, these are really like real world skills. I love it. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's kind of a good sequence for science to start with, is general science and physical science. And then everybody knows you're usually going to take biology and chem in high school, and they're considered requirements. I just had a big discussion on an online forum about requirements for science for college or whatever, but biology and chemistry are really important. And in my mind, as the non-science person, I think it's super important for your kids to have a basic understanding of biology and chemistry, because you're really just learning vocabulary at this point. You're not really learning like how to change the world with biology, which you can, or, you know, how to create starships or whatever. You know what I mean? You're learning some basic vocab and the way things work, and your kids need to know how things work. So yeah. What would you add to that?
Okay, biology. Yes, I feel super strong about biology. Even if you're not going to college, I think it's so important to know the way our bodies work, because we just need to be in charge of our own health and the health of our family. And I just think knowing that basic information about how your own body works and operates is so crucial it's like that first step in achieving longevity and having good longevity. So a long life and a healthy life, which is, I think, pretty much everyone wants that out of life.
Yeah. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. The other thing too, people are living longer. I don't know that they're living to over 200 at this point, but like the average lifespan is just increasing. And so we're going to be working longer. We're going to be hopefully active longer.
Sure
If you don't have your health, it doesn't matter really. Like if you don't have mobility, if you can't see well and think clearly, and now the science is bodies have three brains. You have your brain, your stomach, and your spinal cord. Like you said, there's facts and then there's truth. And this is one of the truths we've been uncovering as the science has expanded, which is super exciting and, in some ways, and also a little intimidating in others, but just having kids understand all that is so helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same with chemistry. I mean, you don't want to move into your first house and start mixing like bleach and vinegar and things. So just kind of knowing how things interact, I think is just so important, for everyday life, even in just when it comes down to baking and cooking and what's going to make your cookie rise versus not and things like that. So even if you're not a super sciencey person, just getting to do all that is really fun. My son in chemistry this week is doing rock candy, and he's so excited about that. I'm making his own rock candy. So
I love it.
I think all the kids in the class are excited about that.
Yeah. So fun. And then it's like, I think the sky's the limit after that. If you have kids who still want to keep going with science, of course they can do physics. They can do anatomy and physiology. They could do environmental science or astronomy. They could do advanced chem, advanced bio. Do you have a favorite that you would recommend?
Man, I on a personal level, I really love astronomy because space fascinates me. And I love that on a personal level. I do think environmental science is another passion area for me. I do feel very passionate about the truth in environmental science, right? When I tell people I teach environmental science, they're like, oh, you're one of those people, right? And I'm like, okay, well, No, but yes, like they're very good for fact finding, and for I think it's good propaganda proof, to be honest, about what's true versus what's not. Is there a little bit of truth here, a little bit of truth not there? Like, so I do think it's great for that. We go over a lot of the history of law. So if your kids like law, we go over the history of environmental laws as well.
Wow.
And that's really neat and almost awe-inspiring to see how real people have been able to make important changes.
Yes.
In conservation and protecting human beings from things like toxic waste, poisoning, and things like that. So,
and I think that young boy, the boy who harnessed the wind, he changed his whole environment. Super crazy. Yeah. I love that environmental. It is. Tell me one of the crazy projects you do in there, because for your general science, I'm just not over the fact that you guys adopted cats. I mean, I just still camp there. But for physical science, you guys do Marvel, or you do superhero trading cards. So fun. What do you do for environmental?
Okay, so because this past year was an election year, one of my favorite things that we have done was comparing all of the major candidates with where they stood on environmental issues, which included looking up their history of what they voted for on environmental issues, which is sometimes different than what they say on the podium. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Wow. So interesting.
It was really interesting to see that. I thought that was super fun. And the kids really enjoyed that. We also do a program where you figure out what your water usage is for your family to see how much water you use and, compare that to the average. I think that's eye-opening for a lot of kids who have never maybe thought about water in that way before, and understanding what a precious and valuable resource it is. So that's really a great one. We analyze the contents of soil. We make a Berlese funnel, and they try to figure out what organisms are in their soil locally to them. So we do some really great stuff that I do feel is very important and not so over the top. It's just like basic stuff that you would use in everyday life. What's in your backyard? Are you going to be able to grow stuff back there? This week, they're going to come up with a composting plan for their family. They don't have to implement it because mom's got to be involved in that process, but they have to at least implement a plan, including where they would put a compost pile, what would be the best place to put it in their yard, and what they would need to make that, be successful. So
wow, fun.
There. Yeah.
Fun. We do also offer AMP, Anatomy and Physiology, Physics, and Astronomy. I love astronomy mainly because I live with a space nerd. He can tell you everything about the space program from its inception until, in fact, we were listening to a podcast last night about the astronauts still on the space station and what was really going on politically there, which is a fascinating, maybe environmental tie-ins too. But tell us, your son's really involved in CAPS. Tell us how this astronomy class is going to be kind of fun. And I think it's a great science credit for anybody who doesn't think they like science.
Okay, so I have to say, if you're in Civil Air Patrol, you have to take this class, and I'll tell you why. Not just because I teach it and because I'm a Civil Air Patrol mom, but my son recently, and if you're in CAP, you'll know what I mean by this. My son recently finished his Mitchell exam and passed. Of course, he's a second lieutenant now, but he passed in part because he said, it wasn't as hard as I thought because a lot of the questions were stuff I learned in astronomy. This was the aerospace portion of the test. So if you have a CAP student, some of their testing has concepts that we do in class. So it'll be just another way to reinforce what they're learning in the CAP materials through this class as well. So CAP kids, absolutely take astronomy before you do your Mitchell exam. Yes.
And you actually tie in aeronautics too, which I love. I mean, which speaks directly to what you were talking about. And there's so much going on right now in the field of aeronautics for one, all the crashes. Let's be real, that's really a thing. But also some of the advancements in the tech and the developments. Back to Elon Musk is capturing rockets with chopsticks.
We just talked about him. Yeah, we just talked about him in class, and we are following a mission that's going to happen soon, not yet, that he's spearheading with SpaceX, called the Dragonfly mission, where they plan to go to Saturn's moon Titan and collect some resources there. And that's going to happen sometime in 2028 to 2032, approximately, right now. So we just had an entire class period on this. So we study all of that. And in that class, we have two apps that we use frequently. We use the Star Walk 2 app to our sky studies. And we also do use the NASA app as well. And so we do take a lot of podcasts and resources from that NASA app. So to supplement our in-class time. So a lot of their homework assignments, they can go right in their app. They could listen to their podcast, or they could take their app and do their sky readings for the night. And, then you're done. So
And these are great classes to really set your kids up for understanding the future that we live in right now, because we are not going back. We're not walking back from tech. AI is here to stay. Robotics are here to stay. The precision economy is definitely here to stay. Drones, they're just a thing.
Yeah.
And so, I know, and that's what you can get a drone license too. So
I want to talk to you about that another time.
Okay, we're probably on the same page. Actually. But there's so many cool things happening with technology and STEM, and really preparing your kids well, having really great high school and middle school science classes. I mean, absolutely do science with your kids and when they're younger, but then get them into a track of just really focusing on science throughout middle school and high school. Because for one, it develops a sense of wonder and curiosity. Good scientists ask questions, and they ask a lot of questions all the time, to the point of being irritating. That's just an MO of a science person. But it's also the MO of a person who's curious about the world God made. And so we're developing both at True North. And the other thing too, even if your kid doesn't go into a traditional science program, understanding the world that we live in is just going to help set them up for success. The other part of STEAM is art. And we do have a really rock solid art program. You're an artist, you're a musician, and you've cut records and sing and all the things and do lessons. BJ teaches a lot of the visual art at True North. And I think art too just blew up this semester. Graphic design was one of our first sold out classes last year, and she's turned that into a full year class. But tell us a little bit about art, especially in relationship to this heavy science world we live in and will continue to live in.
I mean, people tend to think of them as two totally different things, and they're really not, because like me, BJ is also another teacher who is like artsy science nerdy. Like, it's not as different as you think it is. They're not as far apart as you would think. But I mean, I don't think that you can even remove art from the whole idea of science. Okay, well, let's go back to, the topic of Elon Musk with the chopsticks, right? You need someone to design that material for sure. And so you need someone to design that technology, and a lot of artists get in on that. You need people to design even the logos for things, right? So, I mean, two different ways of looking at it, but I think they're really interchangeable. And also, again, it helps develop that balanced brain. It's a different part of your brain you use when you do art than when you do science. So it helps develop a balanced brain, and I think just makes a more balanced child. Graphic design, I think, is an amazing course. I do understand that it is filling up. So if you think you might be interested on that and you're watching this, you should get on that right away.
You should. And also, I really think, when COVID happened, everybody went to the sciences and
Yeah.
or to the arts, and
Yeah.
all the artists went on YouTube and started offering their art for free.
Yeah.
You saw the actor Jean-Luc Picard, I can't remember his actual name,
Yeah.
but he was doing Shakespeare. Yo-Yo Ma was playing the violin. I
Yeah.
mean, people were saying, my gift to humanity is the art that I have that
Yeah.
can't be taken away by time or location. And I think giving our kids a way to express themselves artistically or to think about science artistically is such a great gift, because when the going gets tough, we turn to the artists and the writers and the poets and the musicians to talk about our anguish. When the going is great, we turn to those people to celebrate with us. So
Right.
it's
Absolutely.
another language our kids absolutely need.
Yes, and bringing up that as well. I believe next year we're offering a anatomical drawing class, which
Yes.
would go
Yes.
great if with your biology
It
students. So,
would. Yes.
pairing those two together with that class as your elective.
Yep.
Architectural drawing, I think we're doing as well. So if you have a
Yep.
kid taking computer science or physics
Yes.
or astronomy, adding that as their elective would be a fantastic add-on to kind of overlap the two disciplines in a way that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then there's botany. I think botany.
Yeah, watercolor drawing,
Yeah.
watercolor
Yeah,
botany.
which is a super fun
Mhm.
class to take with
Yep.
biology. So yeah, go check out the art classes too, because the kids do have a lot of fun. And the stuff that the kids are creating, it just blows me away with how talented young people are. They really, they just need some skills to go with it. But the person who can think across their brain spheres, like with the artistic ideas and the science, it's one of the reasons Elon Musk is a billionaire, because he's able to think in both ways. Like, we have this really difficult scientific problem over here. What is the most creative, out of the box, like no one would even consider it, way to think about it?
Yeah.
Catching a rocket with it coming down backwards in this little, I mean, who would have thought,
An artist designed that.
An artist designed that. Yes, yes. It wasn't an engineer, probably.
Right.
But I love it. I love that. And so that's part of why we've really focused on science and art. And we really do have exceptional science teachers. Melissa Grande, you have a background in environmental science. Sunny Hummel, who is new to us this year, she's a geochemist. Super excited to have her on board. And she's a wild and free leader like Melissa was. And so they're all about all the things. And of course, Dr. Kristen Moon. Am I missing anybody in science? I feel like, did we pare it down?
I think so.
I think so. And then for art, it's mostly BJ who's teaching the art classes, the graphic design, the video editing. Oh no, Kirsten Schamberg is also teaching video editing too, and audio editing, which is again another smash up of tech and art. And so I'm super excited. Everybody loved video editing so much. So BJ and Kirsten got together to make sure that there's an easy segue into video editing too. And Kirsten actually worked with Light and Sound Studios. So we've actually got an expert teacher here, and she's also doing audio editing. These are marketable classes. Your kids can go out and say, you need a podcast editor? Hire me. Do you need somebody to video edit your graphics for your small business? I have the skills. And so, like, the world is tech, so much tech. Your high schooler can get online and start a business.
Yeah.
So we want to help your kids.
Graphic design comes in. Even in graphic design. If you have a techie kid who's wanting to be an entrepreneur, definitely graphic design, video editing, audio editing. If you have a future drone pilot, graphic design, audio editing, video editing. So yeah, there's a lot of great ways to tie all that in.
Yeah. So I hope you guys take science education in your homeschool, private or public school very seriously. If you don't have a great science program, consider True North Academy. We have a great one. The other thing too, Melissa, you actually do a science fair with one of your classes online. Tell us how you created this crazy idea.
Okay. So yeah, all of my classes are doing a science fair for their final project for second semester, and they're doing great. Each of the classes has a different theme. In general science, they're inventing things. And I really hope some of those kids patent their ideas, because there are truly some ideas that if they existed, I would go out and buy them tomorrow, honestly. So I've been really encouraging them to really shoot for the stars when it comes to their idea, because some of them are really fantastic. But yeah, so we're going to do a virtual science fair, and we have benchmark assignments throughout the year that the kids meet to make sure that they're staying on track with that as well. And for our last day of class, we're going to attend the science fair virtually, and I'm creating a set of slides, and each student will have their own slide with a link to their science fair, which will have another set of slides with graphics and graphs and data, pictures, video, whatever they want to include. It's like their own presentation. And then we are doing peer evaluations with the older classes. So they'll have to visit at least, 5 during class time, evaluate it based on the peer evaluation criteria. And then that will all be factored into the student's final grade. So
love it. So much fun. So anybody who says poor homeschoolers, poor alternative ed students, they're missing out. Well, not here. They're doing the science fair. I love it. And I love the peer evaluation too. Again, transferable skills, because it actually takes certain skills to evaluate well. Because you can either just be very passive and not be helpful, or you can be a complete jerk, also not helpful.
Yes.
So teaching kids how to evaluate someone else is actually a skill that they're going to use throughout the rest of their life. Let's be honest,
For sure. And it makes them think about how would I want to be evaluated? Because they all know what they didn't do the best at and what they did awesome at. So everyone wants grace for their areas, right? So I think that it helps them to think about that because their own project is at stake as well. So they're thinking about that as they're evaluating others. So it develops empathy and compassion and
I love it. I love it. So as we wrap up, and you guys, you can tell why Melissa is the department chair for STEAM at True North. But Melissa, tell everybody what classes you are teaching at True North, because physical science, we're actually going to, anyway, some of these classes are going to fill again this coming year. So
this year I am teaching physical science.
This year is in 25, 26?
Yes, this coming year.
Yeah.
Physical science I will be teaching, as well as physics and astronomy and environmental science.
Awesome. So go check out the catalog, truenorthhomeschool.academy. The classes are live. We have live online and self-paced classes, and our self-paced catalog is growing. You are actually writing some of the ones that will be available early summer, like human growth and development, which ties in really well to some of the science classes you're teaching. You're going to also do
drug society and human behavior. Which is going to be super interesting. I'm really enjoying preparing to put that together. And I also think that would be a good tie-in even with environmental science. There's crossover there, and I'm like, okay.
That's a great, seriously, because I love it. So excited about what's ahead. You guys check out the catalog. If you have any questions, you can email us or call us. That information is on the website on the upper left-hand side. There's also a live chat. Just click it. It comes to a person. We actually talk with you. And if you'd like to get some academic advising or just talk about classes or where your kids are at or how to place them, we would love to chat with you. So Melissa, thank you so much. It's always so fun to talk to you. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for listening in.